Welcome everyone to the Plays Podcast. Except it's not the Plays Podcast.
Ooh.
It's SmaxTalk, baby. I'm your host, Smax, for this episode, and I'm joined today by Alex Slothking Martinez. How are you doing on this fine afternoon?
I'm excited. I am excited because it is Smax Talk time. We are about a few days away from playoffs, and it's getting super exciting. That's why we brought together a top 20 players list for this episode.
Yeah, we certainly did. That's what this episode is going to be all about. We have constructed each Sloth King and I, and also Plays, who is not here for this episode because he is on his honeymoon. We've all made top 20 lists of the players in every single division, combined into one single list. And that list as well has been put into an aggregate as well. So we've got the total in the document as well. And speaking of the document, that will be in the description of the video. So you are encouraged to click that and follow along as you hear our voices talk about these players, as it will make a lot more sense. And we made it look somewhat pretty for everyone as well.
Don't look ahead.
Yeah, if you don't want to be spoiled, then just like scroll down so where you can only see one line of each one as well. And if you also don't want to be spoiled, then we will be starting from the bottom. So just listening to the audio, you can get that as it goes on. So we will be getting into that. But before we talk about anything else, I do want to give a little bit of a shout out to our next episode this later on in the week, where we will be going over the patch rundown, our playoffs predictions, and a couple of announcements as well for Phoenix Rising as a whole. So those all will not be making an appearance in this episode, but stay tuned. There will be another one within the next couple of days where we will have that out because, of course, it is Monday today when we're recording this. The patch hasn't dropped, so we can't really give all of that information. But without further ado, we are going to be getting into talking about the lists here. And if you're looking at them with us right now, we've got some pretty shaky stuff going on. We have very, very differing opinions, specifically Plays, who is not here to defend himself. His bottom five are not appearing in anyone else's list, which is rather interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, I think obviously we're three different analysts that see three different point of views
No.
sometimes, but either way, we do want to get right into it for the list. How are you doing on your bottom pick, Smax?
Well, I'm pretty excited that I have got like a kind of support sandwich going on right here. I've got a support at the bottom and a support at the top. And the support at the bottom is Laxon from Essentia Storm, and he is actually the only Essentia member that I have on my list, specifically because he has been a linchpin in their success. I feel he has been really, really a driving force in a very different way from the support at the top of my list for his team. Laxon has been very, very solid in the team fights. Specifically, there was that one Swain game where he was the one taking all the blue buffs. He was the one doing all the damage. Laxon has been a very important part of Essentia Storm's success and why they did get into the playoffs.
Yeah, so coming in for my number 20, we're coming in with Compulse on the top side. On the side of UT Esports Blue. This guy is an animal. Like, he will take your matchup. He will solo carry his team just on the top side alone, and he will be such a force to. He has so many good picks. We've seen him on the Aurelia, which is like his all-star pick.
Yep.
Do not let this guy get Aurelia because he will put in work.
The Rise too.
And he fought through the Soul division, and for us, I felt like the Soul division was the strongest division, and you gotta put in a lot of work to show effort in that division.
Yeah, he just barely did not make it out either. UT Blue, of course, did fall a little bit to the wayside in that fourth spot. They didn't quite make it. Asian Invasion were the teams to secure that spot. Actually, we forgot, before we go any further in the list, we do have some honorable mentions to talk about.
Yes.
We've got some players that we could not put on the list because they are not still on their teams going into the playoffs, or they or other things that we'll get into. And at the top of our list, the both of us here, is going to be Vark and Mariscudo from Zephyr, as they did have to depart the team in an unfortunate turn of events for the team, but I'm sure they are pretty happy with their decision as they both did get job promotions, I believe. So Vark and Mariscudo are not on any of our lists, but honorable mentions in our hearts. They would have made the list had they continued on, I'm sure. Yeah, do you
Yeah, we all.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, we also had Pop Tarts on there. I
Yeah,
know
yeah.
Pop Tarts was an animal in the mid lane. He was. I've never seen over 50% damage done in a game just solely off of one player, and he has taken that level. He played a lot of different casters in the
Yeah.
mid and was always finding success, even if his team wasn't finding the same. And that's why he is on my honorable mentions list.
Yeah, I think he was probably the best mage player we had in all of PRL. But of course, he took his success and went up to master. No longer with us in our Plat Diamond League, unfortunately for us, because we really enjoyed watching that guy play. But also on my honorable mentions list, I've got Shaden, the top laner for Tempest Rampage. Tempest Rampage no longer taking part in the Life Division after an unfortunate turn of events with their team, but still, Shaden would have been on my list had that not been the case, along with a bunch of other top laners that we'll be getting into rather shortly. And um, I think you also had Tea Time in yours, right?
Yeah, Tea Time was on my list, but that was. It's not that I don't see him as a great player for this list because he'd definitely be on there.
Mm,
It's just he's more of he's a sub for the team and their coach. So for me to put him on the list seems a little unfair.
yeah.
Uh, but he
Plays
did
thought
an
otherwise.
amazing job. Yeah, Plays put him on his list though.
Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about him when we get to plays list here, but yeah, we do have all those honorable mentions, and a big shout out to all the people who are just like barely not on our list as well. I'm sure we'll be getting into that. Like your number 19, JCar. I went through and I made a top 30. JCar was my number 22, so he just barely did not make it on there. But JCar is super solid, as I'm sure you're ready to talk about him.
Oh man, I am. You want to keep going about honorable mentions, or you want to jump into the list
We can do
back
honorable
to number
mentions. Do you have
19?
more? I
I
still
did.
have to
The
shout
only
out
other two
Nutty.
I had was Nutty
Yeah.
because he like solo carried his teams to success and
Yeah.
then left. But maybe we'll see how successful he is on Zephyr,
Yeah.
and maybe we'll have another list in the possible future.
Hoo-hoo.
And Stealthy Tiger for his amazing Rammus play, because that guy is always like 5 stars on Rammus, no
Yeah.
matter what.
He's pretty awesome. He makes Ramus look good, which is not an easy task. So, a big
All
shout
right,
out to that
so
guy.
as we know, J-Car was my number 19 in the mid lane for UT Esports Blue. Had to keep the boys together because J-Car and Compulse, when you put these two together, they are destructive in team fights and they have such great synergy and they always can come back and find that upset in those team fights, and that's why he is my number 19.
Yeah, and you've got a lot of mids on your list, so he barely squeaked in there, which is super exciting. But my number 19 is actually a support, and it's one that you and Plays both have much higher than me, which is rather interesting. I remember when I was making this list, I showed my friend who doesn't really know about the players. He's like, "Oh man, you've got a support at the top. That's such support bias." And then I went down through the whole thing, and he's like, "Oh, never mind. That guy's just really good." Then I was like, "Yeah." But I've got two supports here at the bottom, number 19 and number 20, and my 19 is Brash. Now, Brash I think is the second best support in the league, but because support is not necessarily the most impactful role all the time, and because Akuma Blades tends to just play as a five-man pack a lot of the time, I didn't put him higher than here, and I didn't put him above his counterpart in the bot lane nor his mid laner, as we'll get later on. I do still think he is very solid in that role, and he is a pretty big piece as to why Akuma Blades are so high on our tier list and why they did get into playoffs in that second seed in Life Division. So Brash is just super impressive on a lot of different champions, but a lot of enchanters too, which is really surprising.
All right, so before we forget, let's jump over to Play's 20 and 19
Yeah.
picks. For number 20, he had Hubris in the top lane for Dawn Revenant in the Mine Division. What are your thoughts on Hubris making his top 20 list?
Well, I think the Hubris is a super solid player for Dawn Revenant. As you if you're looking at my list, you can see he's not the Dawn Revenant player that I put on my list because I think that there is a player that is more impactful overall on that team. But I do still think that Hubris would likely be my second pick, as he is just super super solid up in that top lane. He's usually just a rock for them. Sometimes he does break out the Pantheon though, which is also very fun to watch. But as most top laners tend to be, just being that rock up there and supporting your team later on in the game turns out to be super solid. But that Pantheon is really stand out, and when he does break that out, it does look more strong than just being a background dancer, as it were.
And his number 19 is Atinio in the bot lane for OTA Glacials.
Yeah,
That is a spicy pick right there as well.
it is. OTA Glacial's not making the playoffs, just barely, as we saw
Very
yesterday.
close.
Sicko Sands shattering their hopes and dreams uh, by not taking the loss
Not
to
getting that
Akuma Blades.
tiebreaker, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been pretty wild. But yeah, OTA Glacial's barely not getting in there. But Atinio is super super solid in that bot lane. We haven't seen a lot of OTA Glacials on the stream, but what we have seen has been very impressive from Atinio, and specifically yesterday as well. He did quite a nice job.
Maybe he's the one with the secrets on how to beat Akuma.
Yeah, maybe he is. He's got the intel, and plays maybe figured that out as well.
He's got some inside views that we don't know.
Yeah, maybe he
So,
does.
well, why don't we jump into number 18 on your list, Max?
Yeah, so he's number 18 on my list, and he's number 17 on your list. So we can both mention him as
Yeah, yeah.
Atlas from Illyrian Gaming Black. Now, he's the only Illyrian Gaming Black member I have on my list, and I think that from the jungle position, he has really shown that he can be a super strong carry for this team, specifically his Olaf. I think he is the best Olaf player that we have in PRL. And Illyrian Gaming Black play around that playstyle very, very well. On top of it, they really know how to get that lane advantage for themselves and produce advantages for their jungler in that regard. And Atlas, when he's on that Olaf and he's rampaging through people, it's just super, super fun to watch.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of good things from Atlas. We've seen him be very aggressive towards his other junglers that he's facing. He's always walking in, seeing what he can do to disturb them or take from them. And we've
Yeah.
also seen him successfully land topside dives, and he does well on setting up for bot side dives. He does an overall great jungler.
Yeah, he really really is. But you've also got another Illyrian Gaming Black member in
Yeah,
there for
so
your
we're gonna take a
18.
step back and go back to my number 18 on the list. Sheeta in the mid lane. And Sheeta for Lane Gaming Black has been so good at having such a great champion pool. And we've also
Yeah,
seen, I believe, Sheeta play in the top side a lot and kind of do that role swap. And that's very important when we come into playoffs and we're talking about what teams can adapt. So that's why Sheeta's on my list.
yeah,
Adaptation, always a solid player. Never have to worry about them, you know, not playing to their usual limits.
yeah. And it's also
So that
super important that he draws a comfort pick ban. People do have to ban Zed against him, which is really important. But moving on here, we've got my number 17, which is Bishan. I don't think he's on your list, but he is on plays, if I remember correctly.
yes, he is on plays a little higher up.
Yeah, so I guess I'm gonna hand this to you. Why isn't Bishan on your list?
There's a lot of good junglers.
That's
There
true.
there's a lot of good junglers and there's a lot of good other players. You know, like there's so many good players and I just feel like the other junglers have done a better job than Bishan. But I'm not trying to take that away from him and say he's
Yeah.
not doing a great job as a jungler. But they've just done it better, and that's why he didn't show up on my list.
Would he be in your top 25?
Oh yeah,
All right, gotcha.
oh yeah, I got more junglers in store.
Yeah. Yesterday, of course, we did get the fresh off the press meme of Bishan getting MVP every single game,
Yeah,
which
I put a bet on Kiwi getting the interview, and they still didn't give it to him.
yeah. Yeah, I think Bishan is really really solid for Go Next in the jungle. As a super fast and high tempo team, Go Next really does rely on their jungler quite often, and it obviously looks really good for Bishan when his lanes are winning, and Go Next do have winning lanes a lot of the time. So that could come into play as why I think that Bishan is so solid. But that is why he's a little bit lower on my list than a few other junglers that we've got here that I think do a little bit more proactivity uh, and are more of like the carry for the team. But Bishan just always looks solid on this team, which is really solid. For Go Next, and I have more Go Next players, so I'm not done talking about them. But until we get there, I've got my number 16, which is Wiederum from Zephyr, and he's their top laner. And you've got him at 14 as well, so you've got
Yeah,
him
we're
even
not
higher
too
than me.
far off on Weedrum.
Yeah.
We've seen Weedrum find a lot of success, obviously, being on Zephyr. Uh, and we've seen him just play a very solid role in the top lane. He does what he needs to, he gets the job done, and he will extend his leads onward to really hurt the other top laner while creating split pushes, playing great macro, and the macro play is really what separates these teams, and that's why he is 14 on my list.
Yeah, Wiederum is another one of these players that draws comfort pick bans as well. His Vladimir and his Gangplank have looked so dominant throughout the entire split up until that last game against Rat Race for the Gangplank. That was a little bit of a rough one for him, but other than that, he even picks these champions into losing matchups, and he comes out ahead a lot of the time. And like you're talking about, he does have that macro impact as well, especially on the Gangplank where he gets those cannon barrages to help the rest of Zephyr. Very very impressive player up in the top lane for Zephyr, and I've got a few other Zephyr members here. But I believe we can get over to your 16. Oh, I already talked about it is Laxon for Essentia.
Yes, Laxon, and a lot of what you said, he's just a great support for that team. He always has some crazy pick down there,
Yeah,
and he'll find so much success on it. We saw him on the Swain, and he completely took over the entire game, and it's things like that that we expect out of him, and that's why he made our list.
yeah.
Uh,
Speaking
and
of
maybe we
Essentia
should
though,
shoot over
yeah, that's what I was gonna
to
say.
Jacob's side because we're falling behind over here. So his number 18 is I'm a rulebook 69, top laner for Sicko Sands.
Yeah, and he actually has a pretty scarce pool of top laners. That's actually the highest his top lane goes on his list, which I think is quite interesting. He only has Rulebook and Hubris, which I guess just means that he thinks he thinks Hubris and Rulebook are the two best top laners in the league, which
He
is
told me
rather
it's not a top
interesting.
lane meta. Sorry.
That's fair, and that
No,
is fair.
no.
Uh,
Obviously, we don't know the intent of these picks. He gave us his list, and we're just going to be going over it for him. So if you have any questions for him, please DM him when he gets back from his trip. I'll love that.
yeah, just make sure his DMs are completely full with top
Yeah,
20
flooded.
flame. When he returns, he's got like 80 messages. Like, why
And
wasn't I in the
then
top 20?
so we can move on to his number 17 pick, which is
Yeah.
Yarg, the support for SBK Embers.
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting one. He's got three SBK Embers members on his list, as I believe the two of us only have two each. And I think I would agree that SBK Embers Yarg is probably the third player that I would put on the list for them. Maybe Sir Rizel instead, but I definitely do respect his choice to put Yarg on the list. He is a very very good support, and also the support that he's got up in 14 as well, which we can get to in a second. But yeah, I really admire Yarg's support style in SPK Embers, and specifically I like that Hims in the bot lane is making him look so good as well. Like the two of them work really well, and Hims, who we'll get to later on as well. Um, Hims and Yarg work very very well as a pack in team fights, and Hims really could not do that without the support of Yarg and the rest of his team as well. So I do respect that pick from Jacob.
Yeah, and coming in number 16 on Jacob's list will be Tea Time. Now, we already talked about why I did not put Tea Time on my list, and I'm sure the same reasons go for Smax.
Yeah.
But he might have saw that game that you threw, And this is why you're down here, Tea Time. Sorry to say it, man. No, but in all seriousness, Tea Time has been an all-star player on the side of Essentia Storm. He's put in so much work to help the team as their coach, and he's also put in so much time on the Rift, showing such dominance with macro play, with early game shot calling. He just runs the early game very well.
Yeah, he really does a very good job of that, and you can tell even when he's not in the game that he is coaching the team very well as well. So a lot of credit to Tea Time, but as he's not really their starter, I didn't want to put him on the list, but I do still have Essentia represented on my list with Laxon, as do you. So still shout out to Tea Time in
All
that
right,
regard.
let's jump into number 15 on our list.
Yeah, and I've got B-Way here from Go Next as their top laner, and I think you have him a lot higher than that as well.
Well,
So
yeah, we'll get to like my my reasonings. But what was your reason
yeah,
for putting him for 15 for it now?
so I think he is a super good top laner. The game against Akuma Blades is very fresh in my mind, where he did have that super rockstar performance on the Irelia into a losing matchup, no less, into the Renekton. He was really the reason that GoNext was still in that game for the most part, and that happens a lot too. B-Way is often a very large standout performer in GoNext, and a lot of what I was saying about how Bishan looks really good because of the winning lanes in Go Next. A lot of that is because B-Way is so good in the 1v1 up on the top side, and he's able to stretch those advantages just by outplaying his top laner opponent. So he's super solid up here. I have only two top laners above him as well, so um, I do have him at third in terms of top lane on my list still.
So for number 15 on my list, Oracra for the Jungle of Don Revenant. This guy, when Don Revenant had kind of a moment in time where we were like, is Don Revenant going to be making it to playoffs?
Yeah.
When Okra came in, everything washed away from our minds. This
Yeah.
guy is an animal. And I mean, like, controlling the early game, he'll always be picking Elise. He'll be picking Gragas. He's always on something really strong that's influencing the map very early and takes control. And I think that's why I put him for number 15 on my list.
Yeah, he's higher on my list too. To put this into perspective, Oracra, before he was on the team, Dawn Revenant was 2-4, and then he joined the team, and now they are
Ugh,
9-5, winning 7 in a row, beating every single opponent in the second round robin. So that's no
very impressive
coincidence.
showing.
Orakra is so good in the jungle, and yeah, I definitely agree. He's a lot of the reason that Dawn Revenant are even in the playoffs, let alone second seed from 2-4, like we were talking about. Very impressive stuff to come back in that way for Dawn Revenant.
Now, next we have number 15 on Jacob's list with Kiwi.
Yeah,
Uh, Kiwi, the bot lane for Go Next Gaming. Seen a great showing out of them so far. And obviously their bot lane can be pretty dominant at times, and I'm pretty sure that's why Kiwi shows up on the list for plays.
yeah, he's a lot higher than that on my list as well. But Place has a lot of bot laners on his list, so yeah, I don't know. I only have 3 total, and they're all very close together. But yeah, he's got them sprinkled in there everywhere. But yeah, Kiwi is super solid. I'll talk more about him when I get higher on my list for sure. But yeah, definitely worth being on the top 20 list. But yeah, for going forward here, we talked about before, Jacob does have Hook the ADC as his number 14. A lot of what I was saying about Yarg is true about Hook the ADC, but Hook the ADC does exactly as his name implies. He is probably the best Nautilus that we have in PRL. And Nautilus is one of those champions that like every single support is playing right now, but Hook the ADC is doing it the best in my eyes. He is just barely not on my list. Like I was talking about before, I did make a top 30. Hook the ADC is number 25 on my list. He was barely not in there, but he is very close to reaching that support pool right here. I would say that he's probably my 5th support if I were to go that far down. And then for Jacob, he's got him at 3rd. Definitely a good spot to have him in here.
Yep, very good. I have Weedrum coming in at 14, and we kind of talked about Weedrum a little bit, and we
Yeah.
talked about him being my 14th pick. Uh, so we know the reasonings.
Yeah.
Super strong top laner. You want to go over your 14, Smax?
Yeah, so my 14 continues that little Zephyr clump here. We've got Wiederum, we've got Akata now at my 14 spot. And if you're looking at the chart here, you can see that this is where my pack of Soul Division players comes in, as I think a lot of these guys are very close together. But Akata, bringing that out off the bat, Akata is really, really solid in the mid lane for Zephyr, as I've got a lot of the Zephyr players very close together. A lot of that is just because I think these guys work very, very well as a team. There aren't really super standout performers, but it shows that all three of the consistent members on this team are very close together and still on the list as well, because they work super, super well together. And I guess I'll go into Dupster because he's my number 13 as well. These guys roam around the map very, very well. They play a very controlled early game that gets them advantages going into the mid game, and I still stand by having them as my second best team going into the playoffs as well. I do still think that this is a favorite to get into the finals and maybe even win it all. I'm pretty high on the Zephyr hype train here, and I think that these players are no slouch at all. Very, very solid.
Yeah, my number 13 is Can't Carry, and actually Plays also has his as number 13 as
Oh yeah, he
well.
does.
And uh, we're gonna stick to your little Soul Division clumping here, Smax. Hope you don't mind. Can't Carry has been an amazing Xayah player. We've seen him play Xayah to a very high level, and we've seen other picks that we'll talk about, other players that we talk about later, play it, at a higher level, and that's why he's not, super high on my list. We've seen the ups and downs of Can't Carry, but I feel like he has such a strong team on R5 that he gets kind of shoved down by his own team because they're all such amazing players. So, wish I could put you higher, but that's where you're gonna sit, Can't Carry. But I still respect, all the crazy bot lane plays you guys make. You guys always find a way to have a really aggressive early game, and I'm sure Plays agrees with me, and that's why he's number 13. I'm not really too sure, but we can start going into number 12 on your list
Yeah, and
because they seem to be teammates.
yep. I think that this is maybe my hottest take when looking at the whole list as a whole. Like you've got this player at number, well, I guess I don't want to spoil it. You've
Yeah,
got him
no, you
very
don't want
high.
to say that.
Plays for Days also has him very high. Uh, my number 12 is my pet turtle. I guess I have to defend myself as to why he's so
Yeah,
low
I would
here,
defend yourself because you're in
but
dangerous territory,
but
Smax.
he's still really high in the grand scheme of things. I've got
hmm
him as my third jungler. Um,
hmm
but yeah, a lot of what you're saying is very true. When you were talking about can't carry, R5 is so dominant in the early game of keeping up the tempo of everything. They are clearly the fastest team that we have in PRL. And a lot of that is just because My Pet Turtle is so proactive in everything that he does all the way across the map. He's been super, super consistent across all of the games that R5 have played. I would say that because he was in all of them, or most of them, he wasn't in the first Zephyr game, but in every single one that he's played, he was the knockout performer for R5 until my number 11 came in and kind of stole that thunder. Who I guess I can get into now is Rat Race, and both of these players are the highest that R5 actually gets on my list here. I think that they very similarly to Zephyr play around each other very very well, but in kind of a different way because they they do like to play almost every single lane very well, and they have a little bit of a go next sprinkle in there too because they have the lane advantage that they get a lot of the time, specifically from Rat Race. He is so good. I don't think I've seen him lose a matchup in either mid or top at all in PRL. He's so consistent for R5. He's a very, very strong contender. And he almost makes it into my top 10 list as well. Rat Race is just super, super impressive, and My Pet Turtle is only one spot behind.
Yeah, so I'll start getting into my number 12 on my list, and that's gonna be Brash. Was number 19 on your list for
Hmm.
Akuma. Brash, I'm surprised you have him that low because I think Brash is one of the best supports that we have
I
right
agree.
now. Um, his his positioning in team fights are always amazing. He's using his abilities to help the AD carry Kite. He does such a great of peeling off all of the players, and that's why I have him so high is because I've seen the technical play come out of him, and it's more than just is he a great shot caller for his team? Yeah, he's doing so much in the actual team fights to make a difference, and we've seen him also be such a great roamer and find extra picks for his team and support them in more ways than one. And for that reason, I have Brash for number 12.
Yeah, funny enough, we actually have the same 1, 2, and 3 for supports. It is Brash and Laxon taking that 2
Mhm.
and 3 spot. If you've been watching PRL, you probably know who the top one is, but we'll get into that one in a second. Um, but yeah, Brash is. I definitely agree that he is the second best support in the league, and he is very, very impressive. Um, I just think the gap between that and our top support is very, very big. So that's
Yeah.
why I have a lot of spaces in between, and you do as well. And you've got
Yes, of
10
course.
spots between there as well.
So let's go over to Play's list and talk about his number 12, which is Bishan in the jungle for Go Next.
Yeah, and the,
Now,
the the 12 and the 11 for him, I've already gone over a little bit of.
yeah,
He's got both of them a little bit higher than me. And I don't really
yeah,
know.
Okada coming in at 11.
Yeah,
Yes.
we can't really get into Play's thoughts about the ordering of everything too much, as he is not here. But much of what I
DM him.
said about
DM him.
Bijan, go ahead.
I
Yeah,
said DM him.
exactly. Go ahead and spam his DMs with that kind of thing. But much of what I said about Bishan and Nakata still remains true up here.
Yeah. I'm sure he would agree with a lot of statements you've made.
Yeah.
My number 11, before Smax gets into his juicy number 10,
Yeah, the number
uh,
10's a super hot take. I don't know if you guys
yeah,
can
hot
see that.
take. So we're going to go. I went with Tron in the mid lane for Go Next. And I noticed that he wasn't on your list or Play's list, but I have him at number 11. And it's for the reason that he's been one of the most consistent mid laners that we have seen. He can shift between mid and bot very well, and you never really see him have a bad game, but we're not really seeing him pop off, like incredibly to some insane level. And that's why I have him sitting at 11. I think he's one of the most consistent playing mid lanes in the PRL.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that he does fill that same go next, win every lane kind of play style. And yeah, he is very, very consistent. He's just really not the pop off performer for go next, which is
Mm-hmm.
why I guess I didn't put him on my list, and maybe
No, of
that's why
course.
plays didn't either.
But
Um,
speaking of pop off, let's get into number 10.
Ooh, number 10. All right. I don't know if you guys can see this, but
Across the board.
we are all entirely aligned with this. Rounding out the bottom of our top 10 is Klexo from Asian Invasion. All five of us, or all three of us, have Klexo at number 10, which I think is very, very funny.
Yeah, I mean, well, you see Kalexo, and we talk about consistent. When you have consistency as an amazing player, that's how you make top 10 on the list. This guy goes insane on his Akali. He's always winning his matchups. It's ridiculous. And even though the team doesn't find success always, he is right there finding some kind of pick, some kind of lead to bring them back into these games.
Yeah, it says a lot here on my list that I have him as the best performing Soul Division player in the toughest division, as we keep saying. Soul Division is very, very tough, and I do stand by that. I think that Klexo is the best player in Soul Division. You and Jacob don't agree with that, but I think that he has the biggest pop offs of maybe any mid laner, even higher on my list here. Maybe not the top mid
I'm
laner that I
still
have.
going back in my head when he did the shuriken flip,
Ooh,
predicting the flash.
yeah, that was
Oh
crazy.
my god, that was so good.
Yeah, Klexo just has incredible team fights. And he often is the main carry of Asian Invasion as well, which makes it even more impressive. Usually the mid laner, actually I'll go ahead and say this, the mid laner in the team fights, he's the only one going into the playoffs where the mid laner is the main carry in the team fights this consistently. It's usually the AD or even like the junglers getting it started, but Klexo really pulls that in from the mid lane, which is why I think this player is super, super impressive. And like you were talking about, he plays the lane really, really well too. He has won a lot of matchups in the mid lane. The one that's still fresh in my mind though is that he did lose it to Recon 5, but everyone lost their lane matchups to Recon 5, so that's beside the point.
So we're going to go. Obviously, we were all at 10. So why don't you start
Yeah.
us off at your number 9? No,
So
we talked about it a
yeah.
little bit.
We talked about Arakra a little bit before because he was your number 15. I have him at my number 9 as the second best jungler in the league. And I fully stand by that. Orakra is so, so clean. We've seen him in all of these games that Dawn Revenant has been popping off in, getting their second seed. The thing that I find most impressive about this player is that he is so good in team fights at disrupting the enemy team, which is not something that we see a player so specialized in, but Orakra does that to a T, specifically when he's playing the Nocturne and the Gragas. His explosive casks are so good at separating the backline from the front line on the enemy team, and the Nocturne Paranoia comes in at just the right time a lot of the time. And that's why this team actually did take down TFT. It wasn't on stream, but I did get to watch that VOD. He was the superstar in that game on the Nocturne at making sure they did take the win off of Team Fish Taco. And yeah, I think Oraka is just a knockout performer in the Dawn Revenant team, and he is the reason that they are in playoffs. Not to take anything away from the rest of those players, but Oraka is just so, so good in the jungle that I had to put him up here at number 9.
Yes, and so coming in for my number 9, we're gonna have Sleepily in the mid lane for SPK. Now I know we're pretty close on this.
Yeah.
With your number 8, I believe.
Jacob has him at number 8 too.
Sleepily, man, this guy can play anything, and he can play it well.
Yeah.
I mean, he's always playing to a very high level, consistently high, and that's why I have him so high on my mid lane tier. I had a lot of mid laners, but
Yeah.
he's
true.
very high up there. He's the third best mid laner in the PRL for my list, and it's just because of his champ pool, his consistency, his high level decision making. That's what we're seeing out of this player, and I can't wait to see more.
Yeah, I fully agree. Sleepily is super, super solid. He plays so many different things. The reason that I have him this high on my list is because of how he works with Hims in the bot lane as well. I was talking about before about how Plays has Yarg on his list because of how he works in team fights with Hims. Sleepily often is the guy who's doing that even better than Hims because he's been on the Karma a lot of the time, and he's been enchanting and enhancing Hims in these team fights. And I keep
It's the
alluding
Hims
to
show.
this. Yeah, Hims. We're gonna bring up Hims here in just a bit. Hims is a complete knockout performer for SPK Embers, but he couldn't do what he does without the help of Sleepily in the mid lane, helping out those team fights in a really, really solid way. And on top of that, he does play the lane very, very well. He knows that he's not the carry. He knows that he's just waiting until you get into those team fights. You don't really have to be super aggressive if the team fights are so good for SPK Embers, and they are. So he's really, really solid. He knows exactly how to satisfy that play style for his team.
All right. And coming in number 9 for Jacob's list is Dupster.
Yeah.
Jungler for Zephyr Esports. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I talked about him a little bit because he is at my number 13. I agree
Oh,
that
yes, that's right.
yeah, I agree that he is the top performer for Zephyr, and I also agree that he's not too far away from his other members, as Jacob does have him only 2 spaces above Akata. A lot of what I said about Zephyr and Akata reigns true here for plays as well. He's got him a lot higher. Well, I guess not a lot higher than I do, but
It's a little higher.
yeah, it's a
He
little bit
definitely
higher.
sees a little more priority in these players than we do.
Yeah, and he actually has him as his second best jungler in the league as well, which is very high praise. I've got him only at 4th, and you don't have him on your list, so he's at least fifth for you as well. So yeah, a lot of shout out to Dupster. I agree that he is the best performing player on Zephyr.
So number 8 for me was B-Way. I know you guys had 8 as Sleepily, so I'm going to talk about my pick, and then we can jump into number 7.
Yeah.
B-Way, man, I can't get that Aurelia game out of my head,
Yeah. Oof.
but he's not all the way up there, and that's because he also has found ways to diminish his team's leads. So that's why he's not super high on those. But this guy is a playmaker. He will 1v1 you all day. You
Yeah.
bring your jungler, he'll 1v1 you and then kill your jungler too. He don't care. He's just an amazing player. I think that they have one of the best top laners in the league, and it's going to show come playoffs. And I'm super excited to see more. His champ pool is not, we haven't seen the most ridiculous champ pool out of him, but I'm sure he's got a lot to working in coming into playoffs. He'll have a lot more picks ready.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, number 7 for you.
All right. So this is actually my number one top laner in the league. It is Ace Ties, and he is not on either yours or Jacob's list, which I think is very interesting because Ace Ties plays
But
his
he's a
lane.
Kale player, all right.
Yeah,
That's why
he's a
he's on
Kale
your list.
player.
Don't
That's
lie.
why he's on my list. You're right.
No, I do think Ace Ties is good. The reason he wasn't on my list is inconsistency
Mm.
issues that we've seen out of Ace Ties. More of the time that sometimes he'll carry the game hard, and then sometimes he won't win his lane at all. And for that reason, he didn't make my list. But more into reasons why he made your list. Let's get into it.
Yeah, I attribute that more to the fact that when he's on Kale, he is the main carry, and when he's not on Kale, he's not the main carry. But he
Kale.
still, yeah, he still plays the lane very, very well on any champion that he's playing. The reason that he looks like he's not winning the matchups is because he's really just conceding the pressure at really good times, something that top laners really, when they are at this level, know how to do to a T, and that's exactly what Ace Ties does. He knows how to mitigate his losses in matchups that he's not necessarily favored, which is something that is really, really good to know if you are a Kale player, and he is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just think that he is very, very good at wave manipulation, which is not something that a lot of other top laners are good at, and I think that's why he rises above the rest for me. He is just, excuse me, he's just barely above Rat Race though, and Rat Race I think is more of that like superstar. He will win every lane player, whereas Asatai is in matchup
Methodical.
yeah, in matchups where he knows he's not favored, he will play exactly as aggressive as he needs to, so that he's not the reason that his team loses, even though he's in a losing matchup. So that's why he's at my number 7. But you and Jacob both have TFT members at your 7 spot as
We
well.
all do.
But we're
do.
all different, which is hilarious.
So I got Propa coming in the jungle for TFT. He's everywhere.
Yeah.
He's everywhere and he's nowhere. He's always excelling on early game pressure, and we've seen him duo with the support, and they find a lot of success around mid, around bot. You're seeing so many aggressive plays coming out of him. He's always in the right place at the right time for me. I mean, if bot lane's about to get ganked, he's intercepting it. He's turning it around, and for that, I had to put him at number 7 because he is one of the strongest junglers, not the strongest yet, but he is one of the strongest junglers in the PRL, and I think he just has the brains.
Yep.
He has the brains. He knows what's going on.
I guess then on the topic of Propa, I can mention where I have him. I have him number 5. I think that he is the best jungler in the league at specifically.
I think you cut out a little bit.
Oh, I did?
You said number 5, right?
Yeah, he
Okay. I
Propa
think it was just
it was probably just Discord. I don't know. But in any case,
possibly.
In any case, he is at my number 5 spot. He does break into that top 5. Since we were just talking about him, I'll go over why he's
Yeah,
there. Like you're talking about, he plays with his support so well in the early game, and he's everywhere and nowhere, exactly as you're talking about. He knows how to counter engage. He knows how to make proactive ganks. and he has that X factor of being a force to be reckoned with on a specific champion. You have to ban the Gragas against this guy, or else he's just going to tear through your entire
Yep.
team. And having that going into a best of 5 situation like we are in the playoffs is very, very valuable. And a lot of these members do, right? We'll get into that, as well as getting into Jacob's number 7. He's got Indigo as
Indigo.
his number 7. We all have TFT members, but they're all different. I don't think Indigo is on either of our lists either.
No,
So
and the reason for that is that I feel like Indigo gets outshined by its other laner,
yeah,
and doesn't really get to play the game that much. He, the support kind of roams off, and you're stuck in a 2v1 lane.
yeah,
For that, we don't really get to see as much because you're being outshined by your own players.
yeah,
uh, but I still think you're a solid AD carry. Obviously, being able to handle all that pressure while your support runs off all the time.
yeah.
Uh,
If I had to pick an AD that was either like pentakilling every game and like the hard carry, or one that doesn't die when I roam, I'd pick the second one, because I roam all the time, and Furious Doctor does too. So that's a really
and
valuable
I
trait to
think that's
have as a
why
bot
TFT
laner.
finds so much success is
Yeah.
because they have an AD carry that's not going to int every
Yeah.
time the bot laner leaves.
Yeah, a lot of
Uh,
respect to Indigo for putting up with that. I know it's tough to be an AD where your support's never
and then
there.
I want to go number 6 on Jacob's list because he has Brash up
Yeah.
at number 6, and we had him a lot lower.
Yeah.
So
Um
I'm sure he has high praise for that Akuma bot lane because he also has Lunar coming in at number 5.
he does,
So he
yeah.
he kept the duo together, coming in Lunar and Brash, 5 and 6. I'm
Yeah.
sure he has a lot of thoughts on the bot lane for Akuma Blades.
Yeah, again, just make sure you go into his DMs and flame about this if you
Straight
disagree.
up flame him.
Just go ahead and say exactly that. But
I
if
mean, they're probably
you're
gonna flame us. Akuma's not
yeah,
happy with us.
yeah, I guess not. We don't have their bot lane paired up right there. I mean, Akuma is definitely flaming you here.
Yeah, that's okay.
But
They already DM me too much.
but yeah, breaking into that top 5 is Lunar for plays, and he's got Brash immediately under him as well. The bot lane for Akuma, I have both of them on my list as well. I agree that Brash is the second best support in the league, as do you. So it's really just about the ordering of all the players and all
Yeah, it's
all of
not
that
that you're
kind of
not the
thing.
second best support. It's that where you are on the list with 20 players,
Yeah,
that's different.
yeah.
So with that, let's get into our number 5s.
Yeah,
Or did
top
you? We not talk? No,
five.
we didn't talk about number 6.
Oh, we
Sorry.
didn't.
Yeah,
You're right.
go ahead and go for your number 6.
So my number 6 is actually Kiwi from Go Next. I think that this is actually the first bot laner on my list, and it's all the
Mm.
way up at number 6. I think that the top 3 ADs in the league are far and away better than anyone else in terms of mechanics and how their team plays around them. I think that all 3 of these bot laners that I have do get the spotlight on their teams a lot of the time in the fights, which is why I don't have someone like Indigo on my list, because Indigo, while he is very, very valuable and he does have that factor where he's not going to die if Furious Doctor does go and roam, he's not really the star of the show like Kiwi is. And I think Kiwi is the best mechanical player on Go Next, and when Go Next are trying to play through every single lane and be very diverse in where they want to be getting their advantages, a player like that is really, really valuable, especially because we've seen him play all 3 lanes this season. He's played bot lane, he's played mid lane, and he's played top lane, and he's won every matchup as well. The the prowess in the lane for Kiwi is definitely something to watch out for going up against this team, as is for all the other lanes. But I think the Kiwi takes the cake for the main carry for Go Next.
All right, coming in number 6. I got Paj. Now I'm not gonna say the whole name because what is that?
I don't know.
But Paj, you know who you are. You're the mid laner for R5, and what a ridiculous showing we get out of this guy.
Yeah.
he wins. He destroys his matchups, just destroys them, and he takes his lead and either split pushes on the rise, or he's taking it to these teams in team fights and doing so much damage and finding so much success with any pick you give him, and it's just been super impressive. I think he is one of the best mid laners in the PRL. I
Yeah.
put him at number 2 for mid laners, uh, but it's just because of how dominant he is. He can
Yeah,
keep up with the fast pace. He can play with the mid game. He'll do it all.
I think you and I have the same ordering of R5 players, except I have them a lot lower, but you have them very, very high.
I don't believe Paj was on your list.
Yeah, he's not. Oh wait, no, it's a little bit mixed up as well because I have Rat Race above, but we'll
Mm-hmm.
get into that in a second. Um, but yeah, we can tell by looking at this that you have a lot of faith in Recon 5 as a whole, which is super exciting. Um, yeah, I mean,
I put him as my number 1.
yeah. Do you wanna
No,
get into we can talk about the top
let's just
five like as a whole
let's talk
here.
about top 5.
Yeah, so you've got Recon
Because you talked
5,
about Propa,
right?
I'll go over mine. I have Hims in the bot lane for
Yeah.
SBK. What is this player? He's like ridiculous. His positioning is out of this world. I've never seen someone play Zaya and never get touched an entire team fight and still do the most damage. Like he's always carrying at such a high level. He's playing his AD carries to an insane success, and he is never dying. Whether he leaves the fight with 10 HP or 100, he's not dead, and he's always finding a way to do the damage they need.
Yeah. He is the PRL team fight AD carry. I think that is his title. And I'm saying that as I have an AD like just barely underneath him as well. Just looking at my list, I went over Propa. I've got Hims at number 3 and then Lunar at number 4. I think these bot laners are
And
very,
Jacob
very
actually has
close.
Lunar as 5, so why don't
Yeah.
you go ahead and talk about why you have Lunar?
So, well, I'll get into Hims first because you just mentioned him.
Yeah,
Hims is, we all three agree, the best AD in PRL, and it's specifically because of his prowess in team fights. SPK Embers would not be the team fighting team if Hims was not on their team. They have this hard carry on their squad that is just showing up in every single team fight that they go for, whether it's a small skirmish or a 5-man team fight. He knows exactly where to be so that he's inputting the most amount of damage and not taking any in return as well. He's just a rock star performer for SPK Embers, and we all agree he is the best bot laner in the league. But we have to talk about Lunar as well, as I think he is also a very good bot laner, and he's very good in the team fights, but he's just barely underneath Hims. But they
and
do
I
serve
think
very
Jacob would
similar
agree.
purposes. Yeah, it seems like he would probably agree as well. And I think a lot of that is just because for Lunar on Akuma Blades, there is one person that outshines him sometimes in the team fights, and that makes it so he's a little bit less in the spotlight for SP Gamers, and I think all three of us agree in that regard as well. Going into our top threes,
Of course.
he is.
Well, I need to go. We need to go into top
Yeah,
4.
yeah. We'll get to
Uh,
yours as well.
so top 4 for me. You went over yours is Lunar.
Mhm.
And we went over. We haven't gone over it yet, but mine is Rat Race in the top lane for Recon 5. This guy's a mechanical monster.
Yes.
He can play anything to a high mechanical success. And I know you talked about Ace Ties as that wave manipulation kind of player, and I see the same thing in Rat Race, and
Mm.
that's why he is so high on my list. I think no one can deal with this guy in the top lane if he has a great pick. We saw him play the Lucian into the
The
Gangplank,
Gangplank, yeah. That was
and
crazy.
he was just hard carrying that game.
Yeah.
No one could touch him. The jungler literally came to gank and was like, "No, no, I'm out."
Yeah.
Like he can't get caught. He understands the map so well. He's number 4.
Yeah. Rat Race is very good in the top lane.
And for Jacob's side, another R5 member
Yep.
where you have My Pet Turtle in the jungle.
Yeah.
And we now I know that Jacob has seen R5 as one of his top 6 teams. We talked about it a lot. I'm sure he has a lot of reasonings why Pet Turtle is where he is, but we can talk more about him later. Let's get into our top threes.
Oh boy. All right. If you're following along on the on the document with us here, you can see that we've placed these nice and shiny metal colors by each of our top three.
Smax did all the work.
Getting into the bronze for me and also for Jacob. We've got Hims, which I already talked about a little bit. He is the team fighting AD carry. We all agree that he's the top AD, and that's why he takes my bronze medal in the top 20 list for PRL in the fall split. But yours is not
All right.
Hims.
Coming in at number 3. We can't give away the other ones yet. Hold on.
Yeah.
Coming in at number 3, we got Fluke. Fluke for the mid lane of Akuma Blades. What can't this guy play? And does he have to be the best player on the team playing whatever? Like, he's playing supportive roles. He has a Galio constantly.
Yeah.
He got the TF for the globals. This guy, you'll think he's in mid. Nah, he's at bot lane, throwing a yellow card at your AD carry before you even know about it. His team's teleporting in while he's setting up plays. It's ridiculous. Like, the tempo they play this game on, and they can have so much of this tempo because Fluke is an amazing mid laner. He has a huge brain, a ridiculously huge
We've
brain,
seen it.
and he's yeah. I have a picture. I have a picture on my phone. And he just always is setting up a play. I don't know if he's the one making the calls, but how fast he's getting there, it seems like.
Yeah, Fluke is crazy for Akuma Blades.
All
And
right.
I guess
Well,
I can mention that as well.
yeah, because we're getting into top 2.
Top two. My second place is Fluke. He's taking the silver medal for me.
The
Uh,
animal.
a lot of the same reasons apply here. I talked about how Lunar doesn't quite get the spotlight for Akuma Blades because he's outshined by Fluke in the team fights. Like exactly what you're talking about. He's teleporting constantly on these global pressure champions, the Galio, the Twisted Fate. He does it all, and the team fights are no slouch either. He shows up in these team fights in a massive way. Think back to that Go Next Akuma Blades game where they're at the bot lane inhibitor duking it out. Fluke is on this Galio disrupting every single thing. It's absolutely insane, and he does it all without boots too, which I think was unintentional. But he didn't buy boots, and he was still doing it on the Galio.
And a big reason that the Seiko Saiyan versus Akuma Blaze game took so long is because Fluke's giant Galio
Yeah.
wings stood in the way of them finding a victory earlier on.
Yeah, it was absolutely ridiculous. As are all of their games whenever Fluke is playing. So
Yes.
he's just he's the mid
Watch
laner
out
to
for this
watch
guy.
out for. Yeah, we all agree that he's the best mid laner in the league for sure. But getting on to the other silver medals here, you and Jacob are in agreement here with your number two.
We got Furious Doctor, baby. This guy is ridiculous. I mean, stay in your lane for like 5 seconds. Like, he always is roaming, finding plays on mid, finding plays on top, connecting with his jungler. They are everywhere. He plays Pike to an insane level, and he's always getting so much gold for his team. It's ridiculous. I think he has such a big brain. He's always thinking about the next play before it's even set up. So for that, I have him number 2. I think I would be afraid if I was a top laner, mid laner, a jungler. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
With Furious Doctor in your game, you have to worry. If he's not showing up on the map, you better play safe.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Furious Doctor, I'm sure Jacob does as well. Furious Doctor has defined what it means in the PRL to have support jungle synergy. He is always, all the time, around the map with Propa, making these plays for Team Fish Taco. Every single lane, exactly like you mentioned. You have to be scared if he's not showing up on your screen. And he has the X factor as well, where you have to ban Pike against him or you're going to die. You have to ban Thresh against him or you're going to die.
They tried to ban him out, and he picked Alistair and destroyed. He got a
The
4-man
Alistar game.
knockup
Oh.
and destroyed everyone.
Oh man.
I'm worried because his champ pool seems ridiculous,
Yeah.
and there's no stopping him, and that's why he comes in at number 2 for me.
Yeah, and he's my number one, in case you guys couldn't tell. Furious Doctor taking home the first place in my top 20 list,
Now
for good reason too.
now
He's insane.
Smax got his first place, and now we're going to talk about plays really quick before we jump into mine.
Yeah, because we already talked
He
about him.
went with Fluke. Fluke, again, a ridiculous mid laner. We all agreed. So that's where plays sits on his list.
Yeah.
And for me, it's my pet turtle in the jungle for R5. I I think this guy has the best mechanics of any of the junglers, the best mechanics of any player,
Ooh.
and I think that he actually has some great thoughts going on. He's always making the right play. If bot lane's getting attacked, he's in top lane going for a dive. We're not seeing that on other teams. He's willing to take risks that don't always work out for them, but he's willing to do it, and that's what we need to see more teams adapt to.
Yeah.
So for me, Pet Turtle, that guy ban Lee Sin because it's ridiculous. He is everywhere.
Yeah. Turtle is absolutely insane. He's a lot of the reason why Recon 5 is so good. I was talking about how Bishan on Go Next, he looks really good because his lanes are winning. R5, they have that exact same thing, but also My Pet Turtle is winning too. So it's just all 5 players are winning
Yeah,
at the
there's
same
nowhere to
time.
go on the map to find advantage, and
Yeah,
that's why I have their whole team in such a high seeding.
yeah. He's a crazy insane player for Recon 5.
All right, with the top 20 list being finished, we do have our combined list,
Yeah.
so we could take a look at that and kind of talk about that over.
Yeah, if you're following along on the document, that is the one on the far left here, and yeah, it's going to be a combined list of all 3 of our opinions going into this. And at the bottom, we've got Wiederum, and I mean, I don't really know how we're going to go across this because we already talked about a lot of
Yeah,
this.
we could just kind of talk about we could just literally go up the list. We got
Yeah,
Weedrum number 20, Bishan for Go Next at 19. We got Indigo for TFT at 18 in the bot lane. 17, we have Acetize in the top for TFT. 16, we have Paj in mid for R5. 15, we have Can't Carry in the bot lane for R5. 14, we have Akata in mid for Zephyr. 13, we have Oracra in the jungle for Dawn Revenant. 12, we have B-Way in the top for Go Next. 11, we have Kiwi in the bot lane for Go Next. 10, we have Brash in support for Akuma. 9, we have Rat Race in the top lane for R5. 8, we have Proppa in the jungle for TFT. 7, we have Klexo mid for Asian Invasion. 6, we have Lunar in the bot lane for Akuma. 5, we have Sleepily in mid for SBK. 4, we have My Pet Turtle in the jungle for R5. Coming in with 3 being Hims in the bot for SBK, 2 being Fluke in mid for Akuma, and 1 being Furious Doctor on support for TFT.
yeah. And I promise I didn't rig this. The top 3 is the same exact list as mine, but I didn't rig it. I promise.
Yeah, he totally rigged it.
But yeah, and we both agreed that this list is pretty solid. It encompasses all 3 of our opinions on things quite well, I would say. The only big issue here is that Klexo is not number 10.
Yeah,
Didn't
that was
follow the
weird.
script there.
And if you guys think that we got it wrong, in our list, please in the comments below, let us know what your thoughts on our list and tell us what you would change out.
Yeah. We definitely want to hear from you guys. If you have a top 20 list that you've been cooking up,
Oh
you
man,
you
send it
can
over. Maybe
yeah.
if it's good, we'll put it on the show for next time.
Yeah. Feel free to send us, even if you only just have a top 3 or anything like that, feel free to send it to us in the discussions channel in the Discord. We would love to hear from you guys how you think that we are completely wrong, specifically Plays for Days.
Yeah,
Please
yeah.
tell us how you think
Flame
that all
him,
of his opinions
please.
are wrong. Please. That's all I want for Christmas from you guys is give Place for Days a bunch of flame.
Yes. Dude, I wanted to come back from his cruise and be like, what the? And there's like 50 messages left.
But yeah, we'll have this list in the description of the video. Along, well, I guess there aren't really any timestamps to go over. Uh,
No, we won't have any timestamps
yeah,
for this episode.
but
Uh,
yeah, we'll
I
have
hope you
another
guys
episode.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, I hope you guys did too. We'll have another episode later on this week in the next couple days for our playoffs predictions, our patch rundown, and a few other announcements. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the Plays Podcast questions channel in the Discord as well. We'd love to get questions from you guys. It can be top 20 related. We will likely answer any top 20 questions that you have for us in that one. We obviously don't have any questions for today because no one has seen this information up until this point. So if you have any questions regarding that, feel free to ask them, and we will answer the best ones as we typically do in our next episode, as it will be a more normal episode, as it were. We'll be going through all the stuff, and we will have the playoff bracket set for that one. Any final thoughts here, Alex?
No, I mean, I'm just super excited for playoffs.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I totally want to do this playoff prediction. I think we're gonna give a lot of insight for what's coming. I still want to see what teams chose other teams. We're gonna get that set, and don't miss the next episode. It's gonna be right before playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. It's gonna be super exciting getting the
Get
playoffs.
ready to Smax talk.
Yeah, it's gonna be another episode of SmaxTalk, so be sure to tune into that. If you liked my Microsoft Paint edit for the
It was great.
thumbnail,
I thought it was great. I was dying.
I didn't spend more than 2 seconds on that. So
He put a lot of thought into the show.
yeah. I hopefully my production on this side is not anything too much worse than what Jacob usually does. Hopefully it wasn't even noticeable until I just said that. Now that I've said this, people are gonna notice and they're gonna say stuff.
But
But
yeah.
yeah, with that, thank you guys so much for watching. We will be back with another episode later in the week, so stay tuned for that and send us all your questions. Thank you guys so much for watching again. We will be back next time for another episode of SmaxTalk.